listening to AC/DC Beyond the Thunder, the podcast with the biggest balls of all. With your hosts, Kurt Squires and Greg Ferguson. It's time to rock.
That's right. The countdown begins as we here at AC/DC Beyond the Thunder have decided to fittingly ring in the new year with Hell's Bells, celebrating their 20th anniversary. My name is Kurt Squires, here partying it up with co-pilot Greg Ferguson and Commander Eric Keelb. This is the podcast where extraordinary fans get to toast this extraordinary entity called AC/DC. Now, we've all heard or seen an AC/DC tribute band at one time or another, but on this special New Year's Eve edition, we've decided to pay tribute to one of the originals, a band that even Angus Young himself has anointed as a favorite. Ladies and genitals, we give you Mandy Reed, a.k.a. Cliff Williams from Seattle, Washington, and Adrian Connor, a.k.a. Angus Young, out of Austin, Texas, from the world-famous all-female AC/DC tribute band Hell's Bells. Happy New Year, Adrian and Mandy.
Happy New Year!
Well, Hell's Bells. It's good to have you guys on the show.
It's good to be here.
Thanks for having me.
So this is the 20th anniversary. How cool is that?
It's just surreal, but it's super cool we made it this far.
Yeah, it's a milestone. I mean, I remember when I first got in the band, I'm like, this won't last.
So Mandy, in the beginning, back in 2000, the idea of Hell's Bells came to be. Neither one of you are original members, but Mandy, you made the cut just 6 months later. So we might as well call you an original longest tenured member, correct?
Yes.
So before we dive into the band, tell us a little bit about where you grew up and how you fell into the world of music.
Okay. I grew up in a little town up here in Washington State called Port Townsend, Washington. And then I lived there up until I was around 13 years old, and then I moved to Bremerton, and I'm still here. And it's about an hour outside of Seattle, just a ferry ride away.
Okay.
And my dad was a folk singer, and my brother, by default, kind of got heavily into playing guitar and just grew up playing music. So I kind of grew up with it in my family. And then I didn't know, my whole family, myself, I didn't ever plan on becoming a musician. It was kind of my brother's thing when I was around 19 or 20. Mm-hmm. Most of my friends were musicians, and then I started dating a bass player. Me and the other girlfriends of the bands, we would all hang out, and we just got to talking one day, and we were like, "Why we should do?" We wanted to try it too. Kind of one scenario, We're like, we should just start learning instruments and start a band too, and we did, and it was kind of started out as a joke, and we were called Camel Toe, and it was really, yeah, the really joking lyrics, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. We recorded like 2 songs, and both songs had like 2 notes through the whole thing, and I started really liking playing. And the rest of the girls were like, haha, and they fizzled out because it's not something they were ever serious about it. But it just kind of struck a chord in me that, hey, I'm kind of digging this, So I started playing around with some of my male friends that have been doing it forever. And I just didn't stop. I just kept going. And then I started up a little punk band with some girls that were serious about wanting to play music and trying to do something with it.
Is this Half a Cat?
Yes, it's Half a Cat. And we played together for about 7 years. And about 5 years into it, we recruited another player, Rachel Flotard from Seattle. And as soon as she came in the band, we really started kind of doing well and getting more and more recognition and popularity in the Seattle area. So that's what I was doing at the time when Hell's Bells started. And fun fact, the bass player in Half a Cat was the original bass player in Hell's Bells.
Ah. And when was the first time you heard AC/DC to even be impressed or want to join Hell's Bells?
Well, I loved AC/DC since I was a kid. And so, truth be known, when Heather, our bass player in Half a Cat, got approached about it, and back then, mind you, there was not a lot of tribute bands, and especially not a lot of all-female tribute bands.
Right.
So when the idea was brought up and she said, yeah, I'm thinking about joining Hell's Bells, I was like, man,
That's awesome.
that would be fun. I mean, I loved, her name's Heather, and I loved Heather, but I was seriously like, I wish it was me. I wish that was me. So Heather joined, and they did really well right out of the gate. You know, first show it was packed.
I bet.
And they started touring right away. And
because it's a novelty, it's not just a tribute band, but it's all female tribute band. It's like a double whammy.
Yeah. And back then it was not really heard of. So everybody wanted to see what this was about, you know?
Right.
Yeah. So she ended up going on tour with them, and I ended up leaving Half a Cat, and I was just kind of in between bands, not really doing anything. And she ended up not working out with Hell's Bells. And so the singer of Hell's Bells up and called me one day, and she basically said, I'm not going to take no for an answer. And although I wanted to jump on it, I had to, you know, do the right thing and call Heather and make sure she's all right with it. And before I gave an answer.
So you became Cliff Williams immediately at that moment.
Upon Heather's blessing, I got her blessing to do it, because, you know, her and I we're still really good friends.
Wow.
So I wanted to make sure everything was on the up and up and okay about it, you know, and she said, yes, of course. So I went for it, and that was that. I was really excited.
Wow. And how was that playing differently than Half a Cat for playing Cliff Williams style?
Well, in Half a Cat, I played guitar. So, you know, and it was just, you know, kind of poppy punk rock stuff. Nothing too fancy or anything like that. But, you know, classic rock. I have 3 siblings, and they're all older. So I'm the youngest of 4. That's how I grew up, knowing who AC/DC was, and just classic rock in general was from my brothers and sisters, their influence.
Here.
So
same here.
Yeah. Even when I was in high school, every high school party, you know, AC/DC was a staple.
Absolutely. Now, Adrian, while attending Kennedy Catholic High School in Washington, during the school assembly, they played You Shook Me All Night Long, and you said that you had, quote, goosebumps and were hooked for life. And I have to ask you, were you wearing a schoolgirl uniform that day?
It's very possible, because we were still in junior high where you did wear uniforms, and we were carted in, you know, to this is the school you go to next, where you get to, you know, have a dress code. It's possible I did have that schoolgirl uniform on, although the skirt was much longer.
Oh, that would be very fitting. Very fitting. Did it inspire you to pick up a guitar at that point?
I think I had just picked up the guitar that year and was just starting to hear guitar in music, where before I didn't know when I was hearing guitar. You know what I mean? Like when you start playing an instrument, you start hearing it in the songs that you've loved forever. Like, oh, that's a guitar. Like,
right.
I mean, that's what happened to me, you know, once I started playing guitar, because I really was sheltered musically. My parents were not music. They're music people, but they're like classical music people. And so my parents didn't turn me on to any of the classic rock music. I actually didn't discover classic rock music until I went to public school. So like You Shook Me was like, that was like what, 9th grade. That was another private school. And, you know, I didn't really hear much guitar music. You know what I mean?
Right.
At that age.
See, you've been suppressed.
Yeah. I mean,
not anymore.
And then you actually did try out for the original lineup of this all-female AC/DC tribute band. But what happened?
Well, trying out, I didn't know what a tribute band was. I had no idea like what that meant. I just thought we were going to be a cover band in a dark bar and I just, really wanted to play, music. And so I asked the singer, she started the band with Amy Stolzenbach. So Jahari and Amy Stolzenbach, they started Hell's Bells, and they were doing the recruit in the summer. I swear it was 1999. I swear that was when I don't know though. But anyway, they came to one of my gigs where I was doing my original music, and they brought some big, like Brad Hauser came with them and somebody else. And it was like, whoa, because in the music scene that in Seattle at the time, like that's a really big deal.
Right.
So
right.
I was like, oh my God. And so I asked the singer after my set, I said, so when I come to the rehearsal, should I learn, the rhythm or the solos? And she said, oh, I'll learn both. And I was like, okay. And I had already learned You Shook Me because I loved that solo. It's like the perfect solo. And
yeah.
So I learned Hell's Bells. They told Back in Black and You Shook Me. I think that we agreed that that's what I would show up with, just it in general. And so I tried to learn those other two solos. And when I came to the rehearsal, we did Hell's Bells first. And then when it came to You Shook Me, because I knew it for so long, I've probably been playing that solo and studying it for like 2 years. When it came up, I was like, oh, I know the solo, like in the middle of while we're playing it. And Amy's like, oh, bust it out. And so I played it and I did very well. And the singer let out this huge like laugh. And then we played Back in Black, and then we loaded up the stuff. And Amy helped me load out my stuff. She just expressed to me that she thought I was a really good player, and in a way that shocked me. And I should have said, wow, thank you. And I think, you're amazing. And I really love this opportunity. And I responded, I was speechless. And that was a problem. And so I didn't get to be in the band for the first year or whatever, 6 months. No, like the first year. But it was that really pushed for me to be in the band the following year.
Gotcha.
Are you talking about the second audition, Adrian? The time you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a group effort. You clearly were the best choice. Thank God we did.
And you started out as Malcolm, right, Adrian?
Yeah, I started out as Malcolm.
Okay. Was it hard playing that super tight rhythm, or was it even more difficult to walk up to the mic, sing, and then walk backwards?
What was difficult is I only had 14 days to get it together. That was what was difficult, of 90 minutes. And so that was the biggest challenge. And so what happens when you're cramming, 90 minutes of AC/DC's music to memory in a performance situation, what happens is those songs start to blend together.
Right.
Yeah, if you have to learn the material in a short amount of time, yeah, it will do that.
Yeah.
Right.
And the thing that saved me for those about to rock, I think what got me into the audition, past the other girl in the second time around, was the fact that I did For Those About to Rock, and I counted it out. I knew, I counted it, and so when we played it, I didn't mess it up. I had great notes, you know what I mean? It's I think a lot of people don't understand when they come in to do the music. It's actually very specific, clever music. You can't just, show up half prepared. You can't have this, attitude of it's AC/DC, it's easy. It's not easy.
It isn't. And those are the words I love to hate, because we've had players come in that did not do enough homework, and it was pretty obvious, but they came in with the attitude thinking, I thought this was going to be easier.
Yeah.
And it's happened multiple times.
Yeah, Greg and I had talked with Chris Slade, and he actually re-quotes exactly what you're saying. Someone asked him, hey, let's jam some AC/DC. And Chris is like, oh, no, you won't jam it. And but then, Adrian, you shifted to the role of Angus, which is certainly a grueling, challenging gig, but yet really fun position to be in. How did that work out?
Well, I wasn't the first pick for that either, but there were no other choices. And so I inherited that spot. And that has been, a huge thing for me, because when I started the band, I was so shy and getting to do this character has been, changed my whole life. I mean,
It is a character, isn't it? You're right.
yeah, and I wouldn't change a second of it. I've had so much fun. I mean, like some of our shows have literally been like the Who Made Who video. You know what I mean? Where all those people are like, wait, I don't know. Yeah, it feels good.
That's awesome.
It does feel good, especially when you're, sharing with a crowd of people who get it, about AC/DC, the same kind of love, and you're celebrating it. It's pretty fun. And Adrian, I remember in the beginning on our first tour with you as Angus, I remember at every gas station we'd stop at, you get out and practice the duck walk. And I remember one time you're duck walking down the gas station parking lot, and you look at me and you're like, I look like a jackass.
That is not an easy move.
And you know how he does it like backwards like Back in Black?
Right.
I was in here the other day. I'm like, how the hell is he doing it backwards? I'm in here. I put on the SG, and I'm like, I'm gonna try this backwards forward thing.
That's excellent.
Well, you've definitely mastered running around playing guitar.
There's a great shot I saw online of you guys, of Adrian on top of a bar, upside down, and the bartender is pouring alcohol into your mouth while you're soloing.
Yeah. That happens quite often.
That was it looked like a stage shot, but that was live.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
One time we had a guy write into the club we had just played, accusing her of having overdubs because she was soloing and because he thought it was impossible that she could still be soloing and doing some of the stuff she was doing without making a lot of mistakes. Yeah.
Wow. What a compliment, huh?
I know. Yeah. That's how I took it.
So you had mentioned that you've been rehearsing with the New Girls, and you've had a dozen or so women on the roster over the past 2 decades. Can you run down the current lineup and describe the members for us?
Yep. We've got Sarah Pinzon on vocals, Sean Bryan, Jess Coram, Malcolm, Simona Bresti on drums.
And we watched a little bit of you guys live. You streamed a show live recently, which was fantastic. That was fun. How did you guys enjoy it?
It was really definitely different. It was different without, crickets in between songs and no audience there. So that was definitely something to get used to. But, we were all really thankful just to be able to play.
They didn't pump in a fake audience for you like sports arenas?
No. I think they didn't. I had thought about that too while we were playing. I'm like, that'd be cool if they did that.
And what do you guys do for other gigs, careers, hobbies? Do you have families, kids, grandkids? What is your life outside of Hell's Bells?
Well, my life outside of Hell's Bells is pretty boring. I spend a lot of time with my grandson, and I craft.
I like that.
I craft.
That's so rock and roll.
That's what I do. Adrian, she stays busy though.
Yeah, for me, I love songwriting. I love music. I love it when that feeling I get when a song takes me away, either with the guitar playing, the drums, or the lyrics and the singing or the chorus. So I'm a chaser, and I'm a songwriter, and so I perform and write my own music, and I'm always studying what other people write that I fall in love with. And I also started acting because I realized a couple of years ago, I'm like, I'm an actor with a guitar. I'm not really like a session player. And I'm like an actor.
That's fun. That's really fun. It's kind of like you said, playing Angus is sort of playing a character. So it's a natural progression, right?
Yeah.
So who are your main influences? Yeah, sometimes when we talk to tribute bands, they don't necessarily love AC/DC, which is weird for me.
That is weird for me too.
Yeah, that you do run into members of tribute bands who really, they're not their favorite band. So is that the case for you guys?
Well, for me, they're definitely on the list of favorites. They always has been. To be in a tribute band and not really dig the band you're doing. This seems really weird to me.
How about you, Adrian?
For me, like, I cut my teeth on Led Zeppelin, and then, but like I said, I started with You Shook Me, and then once I started, and I always loved like Back in Black. I think I started trying to do that solo, and I wasn't too familiar with anything before Highway to Hell. But once I started learning these songs, it changed like everything about my songwriting. I was always trying to do stuff that was too complicated, too intricate.
Yeah, right.
And like doing this music, getting to perform it, and I mean, the words are like Bible verses to me. So, and you know, and the solos. I mean, I remember if you catch me on the right day, if I start talking about, you know, how good AC/DC is, I might start crying because I mean, it really provided this platform to connect with people in a way that I never would have had an opportunity to connect with before.
Right.
And the music I don't know, it connects people.
Yeah, it's kind of what AC/DC Beyond the Thunder is all about. Is like trying to figure out what's going on inside. How does it affect us in all these different ways, in unique ways too, from actors and authors and athletes. It affects different people in different ways, and it's hard to put your finger on it.
It's so magical.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever had a rock band moment where a famous group has tried to poach one of you guys, like Judas Priest or Journey, or you're up on stage with Alice Cooper playing on somebody's record or anything like that?
And no. We've had people come in and try and coach our fucking set. Like, I'm going to play guitar on this. It's like, really? Don't you have your own fucking band?
So, Adrian, when you first joined Hell's Bells, you said you opened for Rat, and you said that you were on the tour bus, and at the end of the night, Warren DeMartini asked you to teach him how to play for those about to rock. That is awesome.
I know. What a nice guy. I can't. Was he being nice, or like, did he really not know? Because he's a badass.
Yeah. So you guys are all hail from Seattle originally. Have you rubbed shoulders with any of the many amazing bands in town?
She might have rubbed lips with some amazing.
Oh God, don't say it.
Okay, we'll fall for that.
Yeah.
Come on,
I
Mandy.
don't remember anything. It was pretty hazy with the alcohol that night. I'm pleading the fifth.
We'll come back to that later once you had a few more drinks.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Hell's Bells live. When AC/DC had endorsed the Australia's Family Jewels exhibition, which toured originally in Sydney, Melbourne, Glasgow, and Seattle, the only city in the U.S., the curator of that show actually called Greg and me to see if we would include the trailer of AC/DC Beyond the Thunder. And we were pretty psyched about that. And so they invited us to Seattle to check out the great AC/DC memorabilia in that show. We caught up with Anthony Boza, who wrote Why AC/DC Matters. He did a little talk, and I played a little AC/DC pinball. And we even got a guitar lesson from one of the former gals of Hell's Bells. She taught me how to play Thunderstruck.
Amy.
And to cap off the night, Hell's Bells performed live in that facility. I have to say, you guys killed it. It was awesome.
Oh,
A fun time.
Yeah, and the crowd was great. You guys were great. It's my first time I saw you. And your cover of Night Prowler was phenomenal, by the way. You're only ever going to hear that with a tribute band anyway, but you guys nailed it.
Wow, thank you. That's one of my favorites to play. It's a good one.
Adrian, you, like Angus, stripped down to your bare bottom. Didn't you say your mother was there?
Yeah. Our singer Amber said, "Oh, I saw your mom when you pulled your pants down. She looks really sad."
That's a great quote. So you're obviously not afraid to drop your drawers, not just on stage, but we've seen you drop them during radio interviews and web interviews. So
And you guys are like the detectives.
we're doing our research. So have you actually done it during a podcast yet?
No.
Okay, just wondering. So you're pretty comfortable with that part of the job.
It's fun. I'm the first one to be pulling off my clothes in a crazy party, so.
So I heard you didn't know that Angus actually bared his soul for years until probably, I don't know, the 90s he stopped doing that and he was wearing boxers, but you didn't know he actually showed his bare bottom.
Right. Until our friend Dawn, who did merch for us for about 3-4 years, she used to date Bon Scott.
What?
Yes, she dated Bon Scott. She got all kinds of stories. And she gave us some pictures. She made me a T-shirt of this picture that she had of Angus mooning the crowd. At the stage was probably like 12 inches high. And he's just right in front of the drum set. And it's one of those yellowed out 70s pictures. I was like, oh my God, he really does it. He really does it for real. Because, in the 90s, that's my time. So I only saw the shorts.
Right.
So I thought that when I started taking that on at the suggestion of our vocal coach, that I thought, okay, well, I'm probably pushing the limit here on what representing, you know what I mean? And but then I found out, oh, it's okay.
So when you do pull your pants down, we notice there's an AC/DC logo drawn on either cheek. Who actually draws that on for you?
Our singer, Amber, she used to do that.
And does it ever fade?
Sharpie.
Sharpie, yeah. People think it's a tattoo. My mom's like, I don't know what you're doing in that bathroom, but you gotta clean it up when you get out of there because you're just ruining the bathtub.
Oh. How did the dreads come about, Adrian?
Oh, that happened as soon as I turned 18. And I went to Olympia and I saw some white lady with dreads. I was like, wow, that looks cool.
Yeah.
So I never had like beautiful lady hair that all stuck together, like in the commercials where they sweep their hair around and it's like so beautiful and all stuck together. My hair was always like thin and stringy. And so this is a way for me to have some kind of length and thickness.
Yeah. And so it's been like that ever since you were 18?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. I've never known her without dreadlocks.
You know what I love about your live shows is that you don't change the lyrics to be directed towards men. So, for example, he was a fast machine. He kept his motor clean like Shania Twain would do. I'm curious as to what are your groupies like anyway? Do you guys have groupies at backstage parties? Are they men or women or both?
Both. We've had both. Yeah. And we don't change the lyrics because that's not really how the song goes.
Right. Shania didn't get that note.
I don't think it's ever really crossed.
I've always wanted to say I'm a wanted woman instead of a wanted man.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it does kind of change it a bit. I mean, you guys had told me once that you once sold Hell's Bells G-strings.
Yes.
And had a few fans try them on at a hotel room one night. Can you tell us more about that?
Two guys.
Is this some of your merch?
It was awkward because, yes, it was. Weren't they female G-string underwear?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and they were just standing there in the middle of the hotel room while we're all, drinking and talking, and they're just standing there in them G-strings with things falling out the sides of them, and it was hilarious, but it was also very awkward.
Gross.
How many gigs do you normally do a year?
Between 65 and 75.
Okay, that's pretty busy. Is it you guys that have to hump your own equipment around usually?
Yes, if we're playing regionally up in the Pacific Northwest, then we haul our own gear. But if we're flying, then it's usually backlined, and we don't take a tour manager or anything. It's just us doing it ourselves, pretty much.
Yeah, and you're probably pretty good at it.
Yeah.
By now, for sure.
I've been doing it a long time.
Yeah. A few years ago, LA Weekly ranked the 20 best tribute bands in Los Angeles, which also included Gacy DC, who plays songs like Big Balls while wearing
Yay, we
trashy.
know those guys.
Yeah, you know those
I
guys?
know.
They wear
Yes.
cocktail dresses and enormous wigs.
Yes, they're great.
And you guys were ranked number 11, and you're out of Seattle, which is pretty impressive.
Yay.
Oh yeah, we're not in LA. That is pretty
So
cool.
I wanted to switch gears on the topic of tribute bands, actually. Let's talk about it in the sense that there was this whole phenomenon. When did that start? I don't even remember.
I think
Well-
probably around the mid 2000s or something that it started really exploding,
Yeah.
and it's just been
Yeah.
doing that ever since.
So Hell's Bells was, would you say, the very first female AC/DC tribute band?
As far as we
That I had heard
yeah.
of, but I don't know if we technically were. When we started, I had never heard of anybody doing that
Okay.
at the time.
And it seems like the AC/DC female tribute bands always had the best names. I remember AC/DC. They had her San Fran, maybe?
Yes.
Yes, San
They
Francisco.
they claim to be before us, I think, but it I don't really know if they were or not, but
Okay. And are they still going?
as far as I know,
don't know.
I think they all have other things going on, and
Okay. Greg and I actually interviewed Thunderstruck out of LA. Shout out to those guys. Are you friendly with any of these
Yeah.
tribute acts?
I don't know him personally, but our last drummer, Judy Kokuza, used to fill in for Thunderstruck every once in a while.
And Adrian, you once said, I honestly would not want to see an AC/DC tribute band that wasn't all girls. Could you expound on that quote? Because I found that really interesting.
yeah, I just don't know why I would. I'd rather see AC/DC, I guess.
So let's talk about the name of the band. First of all, the origin of it, and then the grammar, which AC/DC is not necessarily the best at. For example, Razor's Edge or Hell's Bells are missing an apostrophe in those song titles. So you get an A+ for spelling for sure, you guys.
Well, then
Excellent.
don't give me that credit.
So who came up with Hell's Bells? It's pretty clever.
I came in later, so I can't remember who came up with the name actually. I do know
Well,
that Amy wanted to call it Venus with Arms, and then somebody else came up with Hell's Bells, and that was the winner. Especially
Yeah.
with the play on the bells part, pretty clever.
I like Venus with Arms too. That's really,
Yeah.
that's going deep. I like that. Might be a little bit too much for AC/DC fans that are just top level AC/DC fans.
Right. You probably have to be a real to get where that came from.
Yeah.
Be kind of a AC/DC nerd.
That would be touch too much, correct?
Yes, you are correct.
Yes. Well, I used to subscribe to Blender magazine, which I absolutely loved. When I was thumbing through it, I remember that article where Angus Young was fielding readers' questions. And he said, quote, "The best AC/DC cover I've heard, question mark. There was an all-girl cover band in America, Hell's Bells." How cool was that to get Angus's endorsement?
Super cool. It was a long time ago, and I'm still it still trips me out sometimes. I'm very thankful for that one.
And you said you've met AC/DC twice, once on the Stiff Upper Lip tour. Tell us about that, Mandy.
Yes, that was pretty cool. We have a friend that won a guitar lesson on eBay direct from Angus.
Wait a minute, is his name Wade Sickler?
Yes.
Yes.
And that's how we got in to meet them the first time.
You can listen to Wade's episode on season 2.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yes.
Yes, it was Wade. Wade, actually, both times we met them, he had something to do with it.
You're kidding me.
We wouldn't have been able to. Not kidding. He helped us get back there and meet him on both occasions.
Wow. We're all connected, aren't we, somehow?
Thank you, Wade.
Yes.
Yeah, small world.
So tell us about that night. What happened?
When I meet people that I really adore or famous people, sometimes I get I get a little bit tongue-tied. And when Cliff walked in, the whole room got quiet because Angus, everybody else was already in there. They had come in and we were talking and taking pictures, and they were being super cool and nice and friendly. And then Cliff came in last, and everybody got quiet just because it was my counterpart, this standing there, and
The face
all I
off.
could say was, "Hi, I'm you." That just came out, and the whole room started laughing. I didn't know what else to do, but we gave each other a big hug, and it was pretty cool. I'm never going to forget that night.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was really cool. And then our singer at the time, Ohm, gave them a VHS tape of us playing live. And they watched it. They were impressed. And there was talk of playing an actual show with them in Europe. And I remember distinctly being in the van, and Amy, our Angus at the time, got a phone call, and it was somebody on their team, on AC/DC's team, calling her, and it wasn't going to work out because the timeline, and there was 2 or 3 of us that didn't have a passport, and it would have had to happen like within 2 weeks.
Wow.
So we weren't able to do it. But the fact that they A, watched the tape, and B, were asking, had the idea, according to, hearsay, it was Malcolm's idea. He was the one that wanted to try and make a show work together. And I don't even have any idea what that would have looked like, but
That's phenomenal.
it's a cool story. And the fact that they asked, was really cool.
And Malcolm asking, of all the
Yeah,
band members.
I know. It's super cool.
That's pretty crazy to have a tribute band open up for the real band. I don't know if I've ever seen that happen.
I know, that's why I was saying, I don't know what that would have looked like or what his ideas were, but I was just happy they called. Even though we couldn't make it work,
Yeah.
They called. So I'm cool with that.
Wow. Oh, what a great story. And the second time you both met AC/DC was in 2009 on the Black Ice tour. What happened this time around?
Yes. We didn't get to meet the whole band that time. We met Angus again and Malcolm and Brian Johnson, who, by the way, Brian Johnson is a funny guy, and he's super kind and nice and just a regular dude, very animated and fun to be around.
We get that a lot.
But yeah, Brian is super sweet. I had to throw that out there because I was just so impressed by just his normalness, of who he is. He's huge, but it was just like being around just a regular dude.
So Adrian, what did you ask Angus, by the way?
Well, I was tongue-tied when we met Brian, so when they took us up to meet Angus and Malcolm, I was like, do not lose your voice, and so I just waltzed in there, and I kind of hopped over Angus, and I said, can I bum a cigarette from you guys? And they were like, yeah. I did a cigarette.
Is that your Australian
And I was
accent?
like, yeah. And I said, okay, and then he said, do you practice a lot? And I, instead of just saying yes, I just like blah 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 blah. Where he kind of like looked at me strange because I was just babbling. I play all the time, blah blah blah. Yeah, and then I asked him for a guitar pick. He's like, do you want the one that we sell at the merch booth, or do you want the one I actually use? And I said, I want the one that you use. He hands me a Fender Heavy pick. I'm looking at the pick right now because I've hung it up on the wall. It's got two ridges from where he does the pick slide for, Highway to Hell and whatever. None of the rest of the pick is really that damaged. So he is a very delicate player. He is the exact opposite of how I play.
That's fascinating. That's something I don't think I've ever heard anyone talk about. So that's pretty cool. I know he picked up the SG because of his stature. It's really not that big or heavy of a guitar. So
I could see that. When
larger people play the SG, it looks like a little toy guitar sometimes, but that makes sense, I guess. And I heard Malcolm just saws through his picks 2 or 3 at a time per song. he just plays so hard.
I've heard that. Now that you say that.
What other questions did you ask? Did he give you his schoolboy uniform?
Oh no. He gave. Well, no. all I got was the pick.
Dude, he didn't
Or
give you any
did you
clothing.
steal his uniform?
He didn't give me any clothing. I did obtain some clothing.
Now, I heard that one time Brian Johnson called Mandy to wish her happy birthday. Is that true?
Partially. It wasn't my birthday. It was on 4th of July.
Okay.
He did call me. A friend of ours, Roger, we call him Dodgy Roger. Dodgy Raj. He's just a super AC/DC fan. Has been to hundreds and hundreds of shows. And he's just good at weaseling his way in. He's a really cool person.
Yeah.
And, he's one of those guys he's that guy that can get backstage without any credentials whatsoever and just be there and not get kicked out. And he's been going to so many of these shows over the years, he ended up getting to know him. And he happened to be at Brian Johnson's house in Florida that day. And he called me and gave me a heads up. He's like, I'm at Brian's house. I'm going to see if we can't, give you a call here in a few minutes. Brian was busy at the moment, but he said, when Brian comes back in, I'm going to see if he'll call. And I'm like, really? I'm in the middle of a 4th of July party with my entire family, and there's karaoke and drinking. And
wow.
I'm like, shit, okay, all right, I'm ready, And sure enough, like 10 minutes later, he called, and it was Brian. And being his nice self, he's so nice. I can't even stress it enough. He's so nice, and called and wished me a happy 4th of July. And I, again, got a chance to thank him, for what he does and allowing us to do what we do. And he just kept saying, oh, me darling. That's what he kept saying that, like, oh, you sweetheart. But he would say, oh, me darling. Wow. And it was a real brief phone call, but I was just reeling for the rest of the night. I was like, I can't believe I just talked to, hey, everybody, Brian Johnson just called my phone. And my husband now, but at the time, we just started dating, so I got to kind of show off a little bit.
Oh, nice. You had that in your back pocket for sure.
Yeah, I just talked to AC/DC. Yeah.
And then there was the time that Chris Slade totally surprised you by sitting in to play Highway to Hell with Hell's Bells, correct?
Yes, that was pretty cool. That was fun.
We really don't socialize at our own shows. We don't have the energy for it. So
yeah, we usually stay back in the green room and rest until it takes a lot. It takes a lot of energy. I have a lot of respect for what they do.
And what's the best thing about being in a tribute band?
For me, it is a way, I play original music as well. So for me, I would never, to get the kind of reactions that I get from Hell's Bells, doing AC/DC, it's magic. And it's something that I never would have experienced with my own original music. I haven't yet. I mean, it's not AC/DC. And so for me,
I think that is similar, like being able to share that love, for me, it's sharing the love I have for AC/DC with the audience full of people who get it also.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, being able to travel and play it. I mean, it's so fun to play. Even after 20 years, it's still fun to play.
Let's talk about some of those amazing places you've gone to. In 2003, you went to Japan playing for rabid American military troops, correct?
Yes.
And then, was it Jordan? Did you go to Jordan?
Yes, we went twice to Jordan.
Wow. The military must love you guys. And then there was the Beer Fest, Asia, in Singapore, correct?
Yes, we've done that one 4 or 5 times. 4, 5 times.
Yeah, we've
been a few times. That's another fun one.
Tell us a little bit about playing one of those kind of events.
Well, Beer Fest, that is, well, first of all, you get to go to one of the most incredible cities in the world. It's a party town, and the crowds there are fun.
And then there's my favorite event, the Sturgis Motorcycle Rally in South Dakota, which I've personally experienced myself. And honestly, there was way more Caucasian male nudity over the age of 60 than I bargained for when I went. I think my buddy Greg passed on that gig for a reason, but how did you guys fare there?
I thought we did really well.
Yeah, I mean, they will give us the hardest slots for sure. I mean, we worked our asses off, but we rocked them all, like Bon Jovi would say.
I was going to say, did you just quote Bon Jovi?
I did.
Any other places that you wanted to mention?
I would like to say that when we did do Sturgis, I can't remember what year it was, but we went up and played. Mandy, what was that venue that was?
Oh, for the time we stayed in the same house with Ron Jeremy? Are you talking about that time?
Okay, there's another line of questioning we got to get into.
Yeah, the venue, the people. Yeah. It was for a adult television network. They hired us and Minikiss, and I think Ron Jeremy was the MC. But they also put us in the same house all together, which was pretty interesting.
Do you have any stories that you can share there?
Well, we did have a guy with us on that trip, helping us handle, stuff, managerial duties and stuff on the road. And we got really drunk one night, and we made him jump on the trampoline with no clothes on.
With Ron Jeremy?
Outside of the house that Ron Jeremy was in. Yeah.
Oh,
we didn't really see him a whole lot, but yeah, I remember sitting in the yard and he comes walking out the front door and said hi. But we didn't see him a whole lot. We did eat dinner at the dinner table with the Minikiss guys.
Wow, that's pretty trippy. Do you guys have a favorite tribute band?
I remember seeing, we played a Microsoft event one time, and Super Diamond was playing, which is Neil Diamond tribute.
Fun.
And they were really good, really good. And, my mom used to listen to Neil Diamond, so I knew the songs. But they were really good. I enjoyed watching them play.
I have to admit, on the way over to recording this with you tonight, I was listening to your CD on Spotify, and I have to say you did a fine job covering one of my favorite AC/DC songs and one of Lars Ulrich, not only favorite AC/DC song, but favorite song of all time, Overdose.
I was the one that I love Overdose, and I always wanted to do that one, and yeah, it's a good one.
There's something special about that song. I don't know how to describe it, but it's got a lot of power behind that tune. And you guys did a great job covering it.
Awesome. Thank you.
So how about any side projects outside of Hell's Bells that you want to talk about? I know Adrian and the Sickness you had mentioned, and you had worked with producer Kathy Valentine of the Go-Go's, right?
Yep. And I dropped the name The Sickness, so I just call it Adrian Connor now. And I'm just over here live streaming and writing new music. And I just put out an album. And the bright spot of this pandemic is the whole live streaming viewership culture that has popped up, and that's really taking me through the pandemic as an artist and a performer and musician and somebody that likes to perform and be creative.
Yeah, and we noticed you tucked in Shot in the Dark towards the end of the show. How do you guys like Power Up? Have you had a chance to listen to the whole thing?
I haven't listened to the whole thing yet, but it's good. Yeah. I like it. The harmonies and just the riffs, and AC/DC is the only band in the world that has got those. If it's not broken, don't fix it, familiarity with the riffs that they do, and can make each song great. And when I first listened to Shot in the Dark, it made me nostalgic. I'm pleased. It's really good to me. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I felt the same way. Felt like a little kid listening to that. And
absolutely, yeah.
No such thing as a bad AC/DC song in my mind. I don't know if that's a sickness,
right?
But I'm happy with pretty much anything that they put out. But
it's timeless.
It is timeless. So we're approaching midnight hour and counting down to 2021. Thank God, a year that everyone is surely looking forward to. Why do you think AC/DC has affected so many people's lives, no matter what they do for a living, whether it be an actor, an author, politician, comedian, you name it? What do you think? We'll start with you, Mandy.
I think, a lot of those songs, it does something to you. It's uplifting. It really gets you pumped. A lot of them, football games, movies, it fits in with life. And a lot of their music is a good way to escape what's going on in the world or your stress in everyday life. And I see it every time we play. It's people getting sweaty, forgetting their problems, and it's just good music for that. And it just does something to you.
Well said. How about you, Adrian?
It's so tribal. The rhythm section is what makes AC/DC. It's, people don't know why they love it. That rhythm section is very tribal. The lyrics are, like Mandy said, they pump you up. They're fun. The guitar is some of the best guitar music ever written. And it's just it's got everything. It's got it all.
And how would you say it's changed your lives?
I am more outgoing than, I grew up, I used to be, and I still am an introvert. But this music and getting to do it and fighting to get to do it has made me bold and assertive and proud, and
you've come out of your shell. Yeah.
Well said. Yeah. Well said. And how do you think women are empowered by what Hell's Bells does?
I think because we're bringing the female, because we come out there and we're not dressed like strippers.
Although.
Yeah.
We're coming out and we're meat and potatoes, just like AC/DC.
Yeah, regular girls in jeans and t-shirts. Nothing flashy, but AC/DC isn't flashing. It's just straightforward. And if one thing they've taught me is that less is more. And musically, I'm a better bass player than I would have ever been if I hadn't done this for 20 years.
Me too.
And it's taught me a lot on the music front, for sure.
Well, it has been so fun to connect with y'all. Thank you so much for being a part of this thing called AC/DC Beyond the Thunder. And best of luck getting back out on the road next year and with streaming shows. Mandy and Adrian, we've reached that point in the show where we ask our guests to try their best to describe AC/DC in just one word. And since there's two of you, let's do something fun. We've never done this before, so let's have you both say your word at the same time at the count of 3 and see what comes out. Are you ready?
Okay.
So since it's New Year's Eve, let's count down from 3. You ready? 3, 2, 1.
Epic power!
AC/DC Beyond the Thunder theme song, Trailer Trash, written and performed by Gannon Arnold. VO talent by Bruce Jacobson. Cinematography and sound recording by Greg Ferguson. Edited and mixed by Eric Keel. Written, directed, and hosted by Kurt Squires. Produced by Greg Ferguson, Eric Keel, and Kurt Squires. AC/DC Beyond the Thunder is a Squires LLC current motion production. Copyright Beyond the Thunder podcast, all rights reserved. This has been a Nat Attack presentation. Shazbot. Nanu Nanu.